Hello, everyone. My name is Fred Nyamunga of Integrity Business Services, and on behalf of e-training, I'll be presenting this webinar called Build Teams and Develop Performance Plans. Our first slide that we're going to deal with is going to look and say, what's the purpose of this presentation? The first thing purpose is to consult team members to establish a common understanding of team purpose, roles, responsibilities, and accountabilities in accordance with organizational goals, plans, and objectives. And we're going to develop performance plans to establish expected outcomes, outputs, key performance indicators, and goals for teamwork. And we're also going to look at how to support team members in meeting expected performance outcomes, develop strategies to ensure team members have input into planning, decision making, and how to develop policies and procedures that ensure team members take responsibility for their own work and to assist others. What is a team? Yes, $1 million question. A team is a group of people who work together and are committed to a common purpose or goal. Could be 3, could be 4, could be 10, as long as there's that common purpose or a common goal. So what can an effective team do? Many things. To start with, they can solve problems more effectively. They can tackle bigger and more complex issues. They can create a sense of well-being and purpose. They can make better use of resources, and they can facilitate work flexibility. What are some of the high-performing teams, or what are the things that they do? Well, high-performing teams, the team members work together to meet the same clearly defined goal. For instance, if it's a soccer team, the goal is to score the ball, take the ball from one end and put into the net of the opposition. That is the goal. That is the purpose. So every team member is working towards the success of that goal. And just like in team sport, team members depend on each other to get the job done. And well, they're mutually accountable for the end result. So if a team loses, every team member is accountable. If a team wins, everyone celebrates. So that's how teams work. And types of teamwork. We got O&H communities, which are work health and safety. We got recognition committees. We got leadership teams. We got the standing teams. You got things like Tiger teams, Six Sigma teams, Kaizen Blitz teams, different types of teams that are put together to achieve a common goal, a common purpose. And this could be committees to look into different organizations, different ideas, and they come up with one goal, one purpose that needs to be achieved. So let's look at the skills. What skills are required for each team? First is communication. If there's no good communication in a team, there'll be obviously conflicts from beginning to end. So the team needs to communicate effectively. They need to understand how best to communicate with each other. In a team, you have different people, diversified understanding, and within that, the team members they have to understand, is this person auditory, is this visual? How best can we communicate to them the same message? And how do we resolve conflict as a team? There's got to be an agreement of how, when conflicts arise, as surely there will be, how do we resolve those? Do we have a committee that we go to? Do we have a procedure? Do we have a process? And some sort of flow chart of how we resolve this. Group decision making. How do we make a decision? Do we take votes democratically? What is it? What model do we use in order to come to a decision? Is it based on facts? What systems do we use to arrive at a decision as a group in order to make that? And then some things with problem solving skills. You need those problem solving skills. Problems will arise, not only just conflicts with each other, but in the process of doing work, some of the equipment might not work, and you might need to find a way of how to solve those problems, supplier issues or customer issues. How do you solve those problems? And it's going to be time management. In a team, whatever goals you have, whatever aspirations you have, everything should be managed in time. every goal must be given time. We achieve this in 2 hours time, or is it 6 months time? It's going to be time bound so that all the team members, they know that this has to be achieved within this given time limit. That also ensure that individual team members can manage their time personally and individually. Stages of team development. Yes, so when a team comes together, there are different types of stages. The first stage is called forming and storming. That means when they arrive there, they get to know each other. There's that first opportunity of their introduction one to another, and then comes the time when they're now like, well, they've known each other for a week, and ideas are beginning to clash. They're beginning to disagree on procedure, beginning to disagree or on solutions on how to move forward. That the storming part is bringing maybe their past experiences, bringing their expertise, bringing their understanding. There's likely to be a storm or when ideas clash, when cultures clash. But as they begin to realize that they have one goal that they need to achieve, that there's a purpose for them coming together, and they begin to normalize. Why? Because they need to achieve that goal. They need to Each team player has a role to play. And if one of them is not playing their roles, like in team sport, the ball cannot be passed on to the other. So each team player has the specific skills that the other person doesn't have, and the other person needs those skills for as a team to achieve the intended goal. And which leads them to performing. They begin to perform because they know that failure impacts them all. And when one person succeeds, one person does something well, they all perform better. They all are winners. So generally at work, when teams perform, there's either an incentive, which is like team bonus. There's always an incentive at the end there, like in marketing. There's the bonuses. There are all these incentives given to them, which becomes a motive for more teams to work together, focus their energies on the end goal, and share their experiences, share knowledge, share information so that they can all effectively accomplish what needs to be done. Without sharing information, without sharing knowledge, it will be impossible for any team to function. And so, what are the factors that help develop a team? So, effective communication techniques and understanding the way a team grows and develops are important for turning a group of people into a team. And this depends on the team size. How big is the team you intend to build? How much time do they need to spend together? What are their past successes as individuals and as a team? And this helps them forge a new way forward. And what are the motivations? You go to Maslow's law of hierarchy of needs. It could be those, the first law is everybody, the basic needs of housing, accommodation, roof over their heads. And when they achieve that, at the peak of it, they begin to want to excel themselves, get to know one another, get to want to specialize, become experts in their work. There's McGregor's theory, X and Y theory. There's Herzberg's two-factor theory. There's a force field theory by Lewin. There's the vroom theory, which is an expectancy theory. And there's the log theory, which is a goal theory, goal-oriented. So there are all these theories one can look at, and even teams can look and say, which best suits us? How do we motivate the team? And from this theory, you can derive one or two aspects that you can use to derive your motivational strategies. So what are organizational strategies? What are goals, objectives, and flaws? We're going to look at that. So at the top of the organizational chart, you have your board of directors. Your board of directors, obviously, accountable to them are the accounting, the purchases, manufacturing, heads of department, the stores, and so forth. So all these departments will have their heads. And from the board of directors, of course, they'll have their director of purchasing, director of stores, or director of marketing, human resources, and within them they'll have managers and supervisors for the different teams that they have. So these differ from organization to organization, differ from style to style, depending which suits of it. But at the end of the day, at the apex of it, there should be a board that makes decisions, that makes resolutions, that decides what happens In this financial year, they look at expenditure, they look at what the expected income, they create a budget, and they will have their mission and vision that needs to be followed. So board of directors agrees on that and passes on their mission and vision to be carried out by the various directors of heads of departments. So most of the goals that a board of directors come up with, they will be SMART. What do we mean by that? That means these goals are very specific. It will be maybe achieve sales growth of 10%. It could be maybe grow market share by 4%, 10%. That's being specific. And something that they can measure at the end of the year to say, we set these goals, we wanted 5% market share, and we achieved it. And maybe within 12 months, maybe within 7 months. So it's going to be measurable, it's going to be time reference, and it's something that's going to be achievable. There's no point in saying we are aiming for $1 million profit when the company itself probably just started, and you know from its resources and the expertise that they have and the market share and the kind of sales they make, that is unachievable. And therefore, hence, it's SMART. It's going to be specific, something that can be measured. It's something that the organization can achieve, that it has the capabilities to achieve that goal, and that those goals are going to be relevant. Going to be relevant to the organization, relevant to the mission and vision, relevant to the aspects of what it needs to have. And as we said, time reference, got to be time bound. When do we expect this to be achieved? That gives the heads of department something to work on. That gives milestones that board of directors can, quarterly come back and start measuring to say, we set up these SMART goals. How far are we from being achievable? Or what is it that is making it difficult for these goals to be achieved? What can be changed? Is it more resources required, uh, expertise required, or have we set these goals too short or too far? So that is the essence, that in between the achievement of those goals and when those statistics are taken and measured, KPIs set based on the goals, the board of directors can from time to time look at how and monitor the movement. Team roles. In achieving these goals, setting these SMART goals, there's going to be roles for teams. What are their roles? What are the tasks? What are the behavior? Uh, what is it that they need to do? Who is the liaison in between? What about stakeholders? So your team roles, some of them will be to communicate with stakeholders. So some of those roles could be to monitor the goals, could be to monitor the movement. Some of those roles could be maintaining the budget. Some of those roles could be ensuring that suppliers are meeting the targets. Some of those roles could be measuring the quality of the equipment that is bought, the quality of the work, quality of the output, quality of how everything is being measured and how those goals are running. And then we go to our SWOT analysis. Obviously, as a team leader, you need to know the strengths, weaknesses of each member, and you need to be able to say what are their strengths, what is it that they can contribute, what training do they need in order to overcome probably could be weaknesses that they have. Can you identify any threats and barriers to achieving your goals? What could be threatening your goals? What could be threatening your growth? What are the things could be spanners that could be thrown in the works, and you try and see how either you can avoid them, overcome them, something through training or more resources requirement. And with that, you set up a skills matrix to understand your capabilities, and within those skills matrices, what is our technical ability? What is the software applications that we have? You look at your hardware. You look at then at your qualifications of your people that are using the software. Are they qualified enough to use that software? Do they have qualifications for that hardware? What knowledge do they have? What gaps could be filled? What training might be required? What upgrades, upskilling, or what experience is required for those jobs to be accomplished? Some of them you might need people with 5, 6 years experience. And then again, you've got those interpersonal relationships. What sort of personalities do you need here? Like in marketing, what sort of personality? If you're going to hire someone in marketing, besides having the required experience and the expertise, you need somebody who's outgoing because you're going to be meeting different people, different stakeholders, people that can present matters, present, all your presentations for your goods and marketing plans to different stakeholders. And then setting up your KPIs, which are your key performance indicators. So your performance indicators could be achieving growth or probably measuring the safety of your employees and maybe employee turnover. Your HR could have, let's say, okay, our KPI is maybe last year our turnover was 3%. What do we aim for this year? Downtime in factories. Maybe there was a lot of downtime due to machinery breakdown or people not turning up for work, absenteeism, and this could be setting a KPIs to say, okay, this year we aim for, achieve no less than 5%, or like with WHS, obviously the goal is zero accidents and wastage. A lot of factories, they measure wastage, how much material is being wasted, instead of cutting the cloth according to its measurement, and the time taken to achieve a goal, time taken to produce goods, because the longer it takes for you to produce any goods, that means the longer the customer is to wait. And remember, we are running in a competition, other organizations there, they're trying to beat you at your speed in production timelines. Hence, some companies, they have 24-hour work schedules, having different shifts coming in while trying to beat the time. And as a leader, there are accountabilities. So as a leader, how do you build a team? How do you build an effective team? Well, anyone can have a team, but is it effective enough? Is your team really impacting and achieving the goals that it needs? Yes, there are teams out there, but you've got to measure. Is your team a high-performing team? Um, is your team really accountable to each other, accountable to the organization? So these are the things that teams are measured on. And what is the performance? How do they perform? How do they achieve it? What do they need in order to achieve the goals that have been set before them? What resources do they require? So yes, goals are set by the board, but then you as a team manager, you got to say, do they have the tools that are required for them to achieve those goals? So that goes into planning. You plan for your team, you plan for their skills, you plan for those that need training, you plan when these can be achieved, and then you managing the team. That means managing the budget, managing the resources that's set before you, managing how those goals are achieved, managing your milestones, and making sure that you are moving within the time frame that is expected. And if something has come up, like we said, it could be conflict, could be your weakness, could be threats that have come up, something that is threatening the achieving of your goals. This is where, as a manager, you need to identify those before through your matrix, risk analysis, and taking action before the threat has arisen. And then you go to your performance plans that needs to include details. So performance plans, what should they have? They should have a goal, an objective. They should have an action or a task. What tasks should be done in order to achieve that? And delegation of responsibility and authority. That means who is responsible for this? We have goal A, achieve sales by 10%. Right? What the task that's needed? Maybe need a new marketing plan, maybe new sales plan. Who's responsible for designing the plan? Who's responsible for taking that plan, implementing it into action? What resources are required for that plan, and when is it due? That is now effective planning, that which brings effective performance. Without that performance plan, it will be hard for you to measure the effectiveness of your team. And for all teams, they are measured on their goals, they're measured on participation, they're measured on their skills, which they're bringing into the team, and do those skills align with the goals? You can have expertise, but is it aligning with the goal? Is it aligning with the resources? Your experience got to align to say the equipment, the software, the hardware that we have, is it something that can benefit from the experience that we have, expertise that we have, and what are the deadlines that have been set? So based on the deadline, which is the goal, the timeline, then you set your milestones. Well, milestones help you to measure how far you are from your goal and how far you have traveled. So effective teams, there's several ways that they can be supported. So you can support your team through coaching, support your team through mentoring, support your team through training and developing, support your team by identifying training gaps, by identifying their needs, identifying their requirements. That helps you support them. The team can say that, yes, we're being supported through developmental work and through resource provision. And then say, what is a learning plan? Well, a learning plan is a way of identifying current development and action, taking action, and the team have a shared responsibility to plan a team member's development. So as a team, you might identify a need, and you take shared responsibility in sharing information, training one another, and using your experience to better all the team skills. So what are the strategies to ensure team input? Sharing this information, sharing strategies, planning. So you need team meetings where you plan roles, expectations, develop policies, use of media, facilitate long-term plans or short-term plans, have workshops as a team, have a mentoring. Each person might find a mentor, a coach, get a coach, have an individual coaches for each people, and time limit, and we decide which areas they want to be coached in, which areas they want to be mentored in. Does the time limit align with the time limit for the goals? And bring in newsletters, briefings, and different speakers, experts that might shape and development. This can be done through personal development. Which brings us to policy development. So your policies there must be a purpose for each of the policies that you develop. There must be a policy statement, and there must be a scope. Why are we developing this policy? For which location? For which work group? Why do we need it? People always want to know, why do we have this policy? What does it achieve? What resources does it work with? How do we fit in? What is it for us? So it could be a policy that aligns with a particular legislation. Could be Workfare Act. Could be a policy that goes with WHS Act. So then when it aligns with that, it's easier for the team, for the members to understand, say, yes, this policy aligns with WHS Act, this policy aligns with Equal Opportunity Act, or this policy aligns with Fair Act. So your policy has got to align or be referenced to the country's legislation. And when you develop the policy, people want to know, how do we go about it, which comes your procedure, which is your step-by-step instruction on how to carry out a task, step-by-step instruction of how to operate equipment or how to operate the machinery, because why? You say, because of WHS Act. So your step-by-step process helps individuals know what to do and following those illustrations. And that helps develop them, that helps bring in the technical know-how. And once they know how to do this step by step, then you can say the policy has achieved its goals. What is our next step? Our next step is to do our learning activities. Our next step is to read our student workbooks. Our next step is to go back into this, refresh yourself, research more, and complete your student workbook. So, ciao for now. Thanks for listening. I hope you got much out of this, just as much as I got out of here. So, we hope to see you next time. Thank you.